Another one is when I cut caffeine out of my life, I reduced arguments with my wife and my kids by about 90-95%. No other changes made. I was still the same guy, same job, same side business, same everything. But when I cut caffeine, all that stuff vanished. And the question is why? TV show or it's quote unquote real. And so the subconscious plays a big part, right? Because you have to protect it is a big thing. So the conscious mind is part of that. But the beauty of that is if you grew up with trauma, if you grew up with negativity from parents or peers who are constantly pounding in your head that, you can't do this, it's not true, blah, blah, blah. The subconscious can be retrained, but it takes time. The short answer is I can't change anybody around me. I can't change. There's many things I can't change. As bad as I want to make X amount of dollars, as bad as I want to weigh X amount of pounds, as bad as I want to achieve all these goals, there's a lot of things I can't control, but one thing I can control is my response and my energy. And interestingly enough, when I work on those two things a lot, the things around me start to change.
Is it possible to have like a third life crisis in space?
Yes, but distraction has arrived. Incoming traveler.
Welcome, traveler. Your frequency has been verified. Grounded, curious, and quietly abundant. You've mastered the art of human A/B testing, manifesting alternate outcomes with micro-shifts in energy, attention, and belief. As your vessel stabilizes, we invite you to enter the quantum hold. Here, mindset shapes momentum. Subconscious codes rewrite destiny. This is not just an episode, this is a recalibration. The Council welcomes you.
And I'm Captain LA of the Ethereal Voyager. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Awesome. So whenever I meet a new traveler amongst the stars, I developed a little game to play as an icebreaker. We have the Cosmic Wheel of Wisdom, and we spin the wheel, it lands on a random question, and you get to answer it.
Sounds good.
All right, let's go. If you could live anywhere on Earth, where would it be and why?
Ooh, good question. I would say probably Orange Beach, Alabama. I've been there once, but the beach was peaceful. There's good weather, good people, and relaxed vibes, and my family loved it.
Yes, the beach is my happy place. I'm originally from the Jersey Shore. So when I moved to Atlanta, I immediately had to find water. And so Tybee Island is my happy place. It's so peaceful. It's not overcrowded. And it gives me that little piece of home when I'm far away. So yes, beach vibes. I totally love that. All right. So tell me a little bit about how you feel about manifestation.
I first came across it probably 5 or 6 years ago, and I've been addicted ever since, and that's to say it lightly. When I looked into it, when I first heard it, I said, wait, you could just think your own reality into existence. So I have to be honest, I was a little bit skeptical. But as I started digging deeper into this and I saw some bigger names who have had some big success attribute manifestation to part or all of their journey, I quickly opened my eyes and paid attention. And since then, I've been reading, I would say I probably read 100 plus books on manifestation, bought courses, invested time, and now it's an integral part of my daily routine.
Mm, I love that. I, as well, was introduced to, I guess, the term manifestation about the same time, about 5 years ago. And it's so interesting to me how people tend to get triggered by the word because it's like you said, in a nutshell, it is creating something from your mind, right? So when I first was introduced to it, it was like through people like, I manifested $1 million just by saying to myself, I'm going to be a millionaire every day. And I'm like, that's interesting. And so I got further and further into it and said, oh, okay, I see the processes of this. We literally are all manifesting all of the time. But when you intentionally manifest, that's what they're talking about. And so, yeah, I've been excited about learning more and more about manifestation. And I think I really am one of those people that try to get people away from I guess, for lack of a better word, woo woo way of thinking about manifestation, like you're like poof, like a magician, and it is magical, but there is definitely a whole process to it. There's a literal way that we can do this. And that brings me to my next question. You came up with a way to manifest your A/B testing. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so for your audience that doesn't know, A/B testing is taking something in your business or your life, keep everything else the same, but change one thing and test it enough where there's a statistical significance of that change actually affecting the result or not. So for an example is when I got deeper into manifestation, I decided to work on myself because I remember the late great Jim Rohn said, work on yourself harder than you do at your job. And that's been a big part of my mantra going forward. So here's a test. If I go to, say, Chipotle or I go to Whole Foods and I smile and I dress semi-decent and I ask the person at the front counter how their day's going or how their job's going, I found out about 30% of the time I will get free stuff without asking. And it makes no sense when you hear that, but as I continue to do this, it made a difference. Another one is when I cut caffeine out of my life, I reduced arguments with my wife and my kids by about 95%. No other changes made.
Wow.
I was still the same guy, same job, same side business, same everything. But when I cut caffeine, all that stuff vanished. And the question is why?
Mm.
And I can't come back to anything else but a profound quote I heard years ago at an entrepreneur conference. And a guy I met, he was worth 8 figures. So I was listening to his journey, how he got to where he is. And he said something I'll never forget. He said, Don, you and I are standing about 5 feet apart. Would you agree? And I said, yeah. He said, is there anything in between us that you could see? I said, no, it's just air. And he said, wrong. There is an electrical energy field between you and me. And the day you realize your thoughts and your energy have an effect on that field is the day your life will change. And so once I dropped caffeine like a bad habit, I realized the energy I'm giving off, even if my wife or my kids aren't saying anything, is affecting them. And so when I pulled caffeine out of my life, I automatically became more grounded and more present. And because of that, the energy around me and the people around me were directly affected.
Mm. Yeah, that's so true. And like I love the way that you come at this because I'm a big believer in experimenting with my life. I think it's so fun. I really try to tell people like if you're not sure of something, put it to the test and you'll be surprised what happens. And so yeah, I absolutely love that. And so how do you think your method helps retrain the brain for success?
The short answer is I can't change anybody around me. I can't change. There's many things I can't change. As bad as I want to make X amount of dollars, as bad as I want to weigh X amount of pounds, as bad as I want to achieve all these goals, there's a lot of things I can't control. But one thing I can control is my response and my energy. And interestingly enough, when I work on those two things a lot, the things around me start to change. And the big reveal is the people around you and the circumstances around you when they change weren't any different. It was you who was different. Therefore, your environment and your energy field's different. So I really try to work on that, not just with diet, but in the morning is I think there's an old Italian saying. It's something to the effect of, you could tell a lot how the day is going to go by how the morning starts. And so if
Mm,
I start my day with gratitude, I learned this from one of the manifestation coaches. You write down 10 things you're grateful for every morning when you wake up. The first 8 are things you already have. The last 2 are things that you don't have, but you want, but you give the gratitude statement as if you already had it. So, for instance, if I want to have a net worth of $5 million, just arbitrary, I will say, thank you for my $5 million net worth. And every morning I'm writing that down, because when you write it down on paper, it's solidified, right? It's almost like a contract between you and the universe, or you and God, or you and Allah, or whoever or whatever you subscribe to. There's a contract that's made. When you write it down, it's in stone. And so as I incorporated this into my daily routine, I've seen nothing but improvement in my life.
mm. Yeah, I definitely take scripting, if you will, to heart. I keep my vision board, and like you said, I write on there things that I'm grateful for, but also what I want to bring into reality. And it's on my wall. I have to see it every day. And because I see it every day and I like kind of read it through passing, it's amazing. Like I just redid it for the new year. But as I was erasing all the stuff from last year, I was like, wow, like I want to say a good 60% of this stuff has came into fruition. And that wasn't even me trying. I just literally put it up there and I had to see it every day. And seeing it every day motivated me. It gave me like that extra boost to be like, oh, okay, yeah, I remember this. So let me take the steps to actually make this a reality. And I like to liken it to exercising your brain, right? We exercise in the gym. We say we want to look a certain way. And so we actually take the steps to do it and we just show up. And it's the same with our mind. We have to exercise our mind every day. And eventually, there's no way that you won't see results. So, yeah, I love that. And it's really interesting what you said about caffeine, right? Because that it heightens your energy. And so, like for me, it makes me jittery. So I get a little anxious, and then I will feel my environment, like to say my animals, they get a little more anxious, right? And then when I'm more relaxed and say I'm sipping my chamomile tea, then they're more relaxed. And so it is an energy, and I had to learn about the 16-foot energetic field that we all have, and how it not only do we affect other people, but obviously it's vice versa. And really being intentional in how I feel. And also about morning routines. Yeah, I have like a whole like 4 hour long morning routine, but I it's something that I need. I notice that if I just skip one thing out that routine, my day gets a little off. But as long as I stick to my routine, it's the mood for the day.
Good thought.
Yeah. So, okay. So, why do you think gratitude is so important in shifting the energies?
Well, if we look at emotional impact based on manifestation or your life, whether you when you walk into a room or when you're setting your goals and going through life, it seems that there's three states we could have. We could have a negative state or dominant negative. Maybe there's a little positive, but the negative outweighs it. There's neutral, and then there's positive. And so I think there's times in life where neutral actually helps. And I think this is a big one with men, right? If you're in a
Mhm.
room and there's a lot of activity going, right, and things are going wrong, or things aren't going your way, as a man especially, if you don't tap into the grounded, neutral, masculine power, when I say that, I mean you feel your feet rooted to the ground and you are unmoved by circumstances around you, that makes you better as a person. So that emotion's huge, especially like I'm married with 2 kids, and sometimes the house can get chaotic, but I noticed if I stay steady, even if everything's going wrong, how do I put this? The chaos clears up or resolves itself a hell of a lot faster than if I react emotionally. So I think there's a power in the neutral state. Now, the positive state, what we were talking about earlier, if I can go through life, and again, regardless of circumstances around me, with the positive outlook of here's the person I want to be, here's the weight I want to be, here's the net worth I want to be, but I live that future as if I have it now, that affects the day in a big way. So I may not have X million dollars yet, but if I walk, talk, and act like I have it, you start to see the circumstances around you manifest or reveal themselves. They reveal the path of what you need to take to get to that number. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. A lot of people they talk about living in the wish fulfilled, and I remember in the beginning, I went through a lot, and so I was learning about living like as if my wish was already granted, and I just couldn't get it because I'm like looking around and I'm like, yeah, my life is crumbling, and you want me to be like, oh, my life is so great. And I just couldn't wrap my head around it. But I started out small and I said, okay, well, don't have to pretend like everything is okay. But in this moment, I'm fine. I feel good. And, I have everything I need. And it just started like that. And gradually it got bigger and bigger until my whole circumstances changed, like literally before my eyes. I just looked up one day and was like, oh, wow. Like, yeah, I actually like manifested what I wanted, but not trying to go for the big picture, just taking it one step at a time. And yeah, so I say that to a lot of people, like just do the little stuff. It's really the simple things that make that have the greatest impact. Um, and yeah, my life has shown me that, but it was really hard in the beginning because when I tell you, it was like my whole life blew up, and I didn't know how to take it, but I really had to change my perspective, had to change my mindset. And as you said earlier, we're all giving off frequencies, even if we're not physically saying anything, but our mental state, what we're thinking and what we take in, affects us heavily. And yeah,
Yeah, and I think you and I talked earlier about Neville Goddard. I mean, in one of multiple of his books, he talks about, can you get to a state where you deny your existing reality and instead embrace the vision of your head of where you want to go? And once you can embrace the vision more than the reality surrounding you, that's when things start to take off. And you just demonstrated a perfect example of that. You had chaos around you, but you were able to manage it and eventually realize your goals.
yeah, absolutely right. And I love Neville Goddard. He's amazing, and he was one of the ones that helped me during that process. It was between him and Kurt Toll, The Power of Now. They really helped me shift my perspective. But just for everyone listening, it's not something that you should expect to happen overnight. It did take me time, but that's why I say it's very important to like start off with the little steps. So, how do you think the subconscious mind can block success?
Well, I mean, I go back to Bob Proctor's presentation in one of his flagship courses where he had the drawing of the conscious and the subconscious. The conscious is sort of the filter, the guard, and then it lets in certain things. But the issue is the subconscious will believe anything that's true that's let in, and that includes imagery. So a lot of people don't understand that the imagery, the sound, the conversations we hear, if you let that in, your subconscious believes it, whether it's manufactured like a TV show or it's quote unquote real. And so the subconscious plays a big part, right? Because you have to protect it is a big thing. So the conscious mind is part of that. But the beauty of that is if you grew up with trauma, if you grew up with negativity from parents or peers who are constantly pounding in your head that, oh, you can't do this, it's not true, blah, blah, blah. The subconscious can be retrained, but it takes time. And so a lot of that goes back, and you mentioned earlier in the episode, there's imagery, there's affirmations you can utter or listen to on repeat. But this also goes back to this TV you watch, the radio you listen to, all that stuff all day is seeping into your brain if you allow it. And so you can build the most grand vision of your life, and part of that is I want to be a positive person, but you spend 2 hours every day reading or watching the news, which is mostly depressing and negative. What you're seeing and listening to is going to override the vision of your head. So if you get the subconscious right first and you say, I'm going to be a positive person, I'm going to filter out garbage inputs so I don't have garbage outputs, then what happens is you say, okay, what are the inputs in my life that are not serving my mission? Well, watching the news, listening to the news, being around the neighbor who constantly tells you that your business will never work and you should just work a job and just, pay taxes to the man and everything's going to be fine. Once you start cutting out the negative, and again, one of my favorite principles in life is something called inversion. So inversion is, if you want to get good at something, instead of figuring out what to do right, figure out what you do to hurt yourself and just cut it out of your life. So phrased differently, keep cutting until all that's left is all that's right.
I love that. That's so powerful. And, to your point, yeah, as we were talking about earlier about frequencies and everything, it's energy, and then we're taking in, especially now in this day and age where we're tied to our phones, and we spend a lot of our time on social media and all of these things, and we're constantly being bombarded with all of these distractions. It's really easy to get caught up in that, right? And the thing you said, the subconscious mind, it doesn't have a filter. It takes in everything. So even if you're, like, for example, I told someone, like, if you're feeling like bad one day and nothing happened, and you're like, I woke up feeling fine, but then all of a sudden I just, started feeling like really down or whatever. It's like, well, what did you listen to when you woke up? Who were you around? And I had to learn in my own life. Unfortunately, I grew up with a fear-mongering mother. And so I had to ask myself as I got older, like, why do I have certain fears around things? And I had to go back and do the work on myself and say, oh, wow, that's because, my mother was always like, well, be careful if you go out. She's so crazy. I love her to death. She, like, you gotta be careful. Thing can happen. And it's like, whoa, okay. That's probably because you're watching the news all the time, and the first thing they tell you is every single bad thing that's happening out there. And I literally wouldn't have those thoughts in my mind. I'd just be like, young and ready to go and have fun. And then I'll hear it in the back of my mind. I'm like, I wasn't even thinking about that. Like, I had to really unlearn that, because it unintentionally made me not want to do certain things. And so I was scared to step out of the box in certain areas because I'd had those underlying fears in the back of my mind. And I had to really heal that part of myself. So yeah, who you're around. And you can't help if it's your parents, right? But what you can do is you can unlearn all of that. But you have to recognize it first, like you said, really dipping away at the layers until all that's left is just the pure essence of who you are, which lately we're all positive. We all love, and we all are curious beings, and we're all fearless, really. It's just everything on the outside that really breaks us down in a way.
Yeah. Family and immediate influences have a large impact on your outlook. So you bring up a great point that if you do the work on yourself, you can unlearn or unwind all that programming from before.
Yeah, absolutely. So if your biggest limiting belief had a delete button, what do you think would happen when you pressed it?
Tired of manifesting mixed signals? manifestation fatigue, subconscious static, energetic dropouts. You may be overdue for a complete belief system upgrade.
Introducing the Manifestation Modulation Chamber, a council-calibrated recalibration pod for visionaries, builders, and abundance rebels. Reprogram limiting beliefs, upload gratitude protocols, test new realities with A/B timeline simulations. And yes, caffeine detox support is included. Side effects may include sudden peace, unexpected prosperity, and the unshakable urge to slow the fuck down. Subconscious reprogramming made simple. Book your session. Rewrite your timeline. Sponsored by the Intergalactic Council. Reality optional.
Ooh, that's good. My biggest limiting belief right now, which I'm working heavily on, is I'm not that good at sales. And so if I pressed that, just deleted it, I would probably have no fear or no repercussions of calling anybody that I thought we could make a deal with in my business. So I would make more calls, I would be more bold on the phone, and I would follow up more.
I love that. Um, so how are you actively working to overcome that?
About 2 weeks ago, I was doing 5 reach outs a day for my side business. Now I'm doing at least 10. And I'm trying to increase follow up from once every week to maybe once every 3 to 4 days. And I'm also asking more upfront for what I'm looking for. And I'm having zero qualms about if somebody comes back or yells at me or how dare you. I'm going in, here's what I got. I know it can help you, and maybe you like it and maybe you don't, but I don't care about outcomes. So I'm going to switch to Buddhism here for a bit. Is I'm detaching from outcomes completely. I know what I want it, but if I don't get it, I am not attached. And that has helped immensely on sales calls and sales approaches.
I love that. And I definitely lean heavy towards Buddhist principles. Actually, it's me learning, like I did a video about the Buddha, and that's when I actually learned that I've been following Buddhist principles my entire life without knowing. So that was really interesting. But also, that has helped me in my own journey because a lot of the things I was working on, I was so worried about the outcome that sometimes it was almost paralyzing. Like, like, oh my God, like, will this work and all of this and that? And as you said, once I really just released that and just started doing things just for the sake of doing it and enjoying it and not thinking about the outcome, which sometimes, I am very goal oriented. So I do think about the outcome sometimes, but really allowing myself to think about it and then release it and just move on. And that has been a game changer for me. So yeah, a lot of people out there are trying to tell you like anything, I don't care how big it is, how ridiculous it sounds. Just put it out there and don't even worry about what's going to happen. And honestly, I feel like you'll surprise yourself.
It's good advice.
Thank you. Um, what do you think the importance of repetition is for mental discipline?
Oh, great question. I mean, I think that's one of the foundations of learning. So you always hear about spaced repetition or active recall because I'm in education, but I think repetition every day, we go back to the subconscious. The easiest way to unwind bad imprints on the subconscious is repetition of the good stuff. And if you do it enough, I mean, you've heard with dictators and countries, if you repeat a lie long enough, people will assume it's a truth. You can use that power for good too. If you repeat a wish or a goal enough to your subconscious mind, you'll start believing it. And when you do, your body will act in accordance with the next steps you need to take. So that's why affirmations are big. That's why if you listen to recordings or manifestation videos on YouTube and just let it run in the background, right? So even if you're reading a book or just relaxing, if you let that stuff play in the background, it does untold benefits to your mind.
Absolutely. I am a big advocate of that. I literally listen to like different type of frequency music every day. And it's amazing how even because after a certain point it kind of all sounds like background noise. But each different frequency does make me feel a different way. And so it's really quite amazing how even watching the impact it has on my pets, like because I play it so much, they're trained, especially at night when I put on the night frequencies. It's almost instant. They'll start to yawn and stretch and and that's just from me doing it every day for their lives. And so just imagine if animals can feel that, we feel it as well. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
So
there's a couple studies. I'll have to send them to you. I think we talked about solfeggio frequencies, but
yes.
528 especially has some powerful healing effects.
mm, yeah, and I just recently started getting into the tuning forks. And
Oh, nice.
yeah, it's really intense. Like it's not light energy because I guess it's just the initial sound when it hits, and I literally feel the shift in my body. I really love like being in tune with myself and with my presence, which I, really promote because that's the quickest way to know when something is your energy and when it's someone else's energy. And that's a form of protection, just knowing yourself and knowing when other energies are invading your space, you
Good point.
know. Yeah. In all this, I learn just by doing. That's why I say I love experiments and I suggest people just do stuff. What do you think is the fastest way to override self-limiting beliefs?
Go back to what we talked about earlier. Change your inputs. So the things you listen to, the things you watch. First, cut out the bad stuff, and then when you replace it with people, places, or things that represent where you want to go. Not who you are now, but where you want to go. So, for instance, let's use the example of wealth, right? Because that's easy. We can measure that. Suppose my goal is to 5x my net worth. I ask myself first, if I was worth 5 times the amount of money I was now, how would I be different? Well, at first, I'd probably be living somewhere different. Second, some of the people that I talk to now, I may not be talking to. And that's not for snob reasons. It's just because I will have different goals and we might not have anything in common. But the third big one, I really sat with this for a while. And I noticed this on vacation is I would move a lot slower. I would not rush, like if you're getting up for your day job to go rush to the train. I would not rush to meetings. I would make two, maybe three big decisions all day, and I would do those slowly. I would carry myself more like everything I'm doing is important and matters, and I'm not going to throw away time or rush just to get to somewhere that I may not even like the outcome. So move slower, and then the choices we make, I travel more, I go to more exotic locations, I would invest in different businesses, I would stop thinking small, the little day-to-day and minutia, either outsource that or automate that and start moving up to the next level, right? How can I establish a legacy for my family when I'm gone? What kind of philanthropy would I engage in if I have the money? What kind of decisions would I make? And I'm talking about 80-20 decisions, right? Not little nitpicky things like, should I go get juice today at the grocery store? That's piddly stuff. I'm talking about the big things. So going back to your original question, I think not just the outputs or the inputs, but also the level of thinking you're going to be at if you were to assume the new you, but now.
Yeah, that's powerful. And I do love what you said about slowing down. I'm from New Jersey. It is a very fast paced place. And I moved to Atlanta, Georgia, which is the complete opposite. And so it's a bit of a learning curve. I remember one time going to a fast food restaurant and I'm like, I'm in line. I'm like, why am I in the drive through for 10 minutes? Like, I was like, this is not fast food. And I pull up and I'm just like, oh my God, give me my food. And they're just moving all slow. But I just couldn't wrap my head around it. I'm like, what is this? Like, I don't understand. This is fast food. Why aren't they moving fast? And the more I lived here, the more I was surrounded by people, I just noticed that everyone would just move slow. And I realized something. Being down here was the most amount of older people that I had seen. North, the lifespan, unfortunately, for people around were probably like in their 60s or something. But moving down here, I would see like the 80-year-olds out there doing their thing. And that's when it hit me. I said, oh, okay. Slowing down literally extends your life, right? Because you're not just trying to rush for whatever reason. I mean, it's going to be there when you get there what you're rushing for. And yeah, I will say it took me a long time to get to that point, and every now and then I still I'm from there. I'm naturally just like to move, but I notice now I move a lot slower. I even talk a little slower now. So I'm like, yes, I'm going to adapt this. I want to live longer, so yes, you guys have the right idea. But yeah, in the beginning it was driving me crazy.
Yeah, you brought up a good point about the drive-through. So the guy I told you earlier about at the conference about the 6 feet between us that's not empty space, he told me, he said, when you get to the level you want to be at, you may go to the grocery store and still do errands if you don't outsource it, but there's one big difference. You don't go to do a chore, it's an experience. So he said, I used to go to Whole Foods and get groceries when my net worth was much less, and it was more of a chore, get it done, I got to go to the next thing. Now I move slower, get out of the car slower. I experience all the fruits and the produce, and it's energy, it's an experience. And he said, if you can get into that mindset earlier, your life will adjust it as needed. But he said, you got to slow down and take it all in.
Mm. Yeah, that is actually perfectly said. And I noticed that more recently for myself, probably last year, where I would go out and go to the store and just really enjoy looking at the stuff in the aisles and taking my time. And in that, I noticed more people will walk up to me and start making conversations. And yeah, it would turn into like a whole like event. And now it's exciting. Like I'm going to the grocery store and I wonder what's going to happen, and yeah, I totally love that now. Um, so what would you say to people who still can't wrap their head around manifestation and actually bringing something into their reality, especially people who have not been in environments where they've seen something like that? So maybe they're the first one trying to create something for their life and they have no blueprint to look at. So maybe they're still fighting with the idea that they could actually have what they want.
I would say the two biggest skeptical groups of people I've seen when they ask me about this or when it comes up in conversation is people that are deeply either Christian or Catholic, and then scientists slash data geeks. And so the two, there's two separate conversations, but let's address both of them. So
Yes.
data geeks, there is a book called, I think it's called The Field by Lynn McTaggart, and she represents the science behind manifestation. So one of the experiments she talks about is they've got people trained in, mental, not just manifestation, but mental powers, qigong, things like that. They were able to influence the dice roll simply by looking at the dice and thinking of a number. And it was statistically significant such that there were no other factors able to do that. It was just rolling the dice like usual. I think it was a machine that was rolling the dice, so it wasn't a person that was influenced. The roll of the dice was influenced simply by their wish of what number they wanted to see. But that's a great book behind the science of manifestation. But if you want to get even deeper, if you go back to a lot of the data geeks love, what is it, Star Wars, right? The Force. The Force, really, what is the Force really? It's really, if you want to combine it all, it's the Holy Spirit, right? For Christians. But wait, it's also the 0 point energy field in quantum physics. And so once you group those two ideas together, some of them start to open up their mind. But again, the data geeks love experiments. So you and I talked about A/B testing. Go A/B test a dice roll and then go put a mentalist there and then A/B test the dice roll again. And you will show a scientist, wait a second, there's something off here. But you can also tell, that data geek, you go to your job every day, you make X amount of money, your life's pretty much the same. What if every day, just 10 times, you uttered the words to yourself that I am going to get promoted, or I make this much more money. Try it for a year and see how your life changes. If it doesn't, then you don't have to believe me. But if it does, then there's something there. Now, if we go to Christians and Catholics, you could the biggest, I think the biggest limiting belief that's been drilled into them, and I blame the church for this, is that you always have to be humble and poor. And I strongly disagree with that. If you read the King James Bible, gold is mentioned a few hundred times, manifestation is mentioned, and the word abundance is mentioned, I believe, over 100 times in the Bible. If you look at King Solomon and the temple, it was all adorned with gold and precious metals and jewels. So yes, you should be humble, but the message is abundance is a birthright. Your life is not meant to be humble and sick and guilty all the time. It's meant to be go after what you want, just give thanks to where it's due. And again, for them, if you mention manifestation or the word abundance, it's in the Bible. It's in there. This is indisputable. You could be the hardest core. You got to be humble before God, but those words are in the Bible. And then the one that blows them away is, so the Old Testament was written in Hebrew and the New Testament is written in Aramaic. If you take all the names and places and people mentioned and you do the appropriate translation, so Old Testament Hebrew, New Testament as Aramaic, you will find that the words you're reading in the English King James Bible have way different meaning than they do if you read it in English. And there's some of that has to do with gold and abundance. Again, the lesson of the talents, all that stuff. So that's a long-winded answer of saying you can get the message of manifestation, but you have to speak to them on their level. So the data geeks, you got to talk about, obviously, Star Wars and A/B experimentation. But Christians and Catholics, go look at the Bible translations and the studies. It's in there. They want the messages live abundantly, right? So that's the answer I'd give.
Yeah, and it's great. And to your point, yeah, it always blew my mind when, like you said, the science data geeks, they they don't understand this concept, but believe in something as, you know, I'm like kind of woo woo the force. Like, you don't think, like, you don't think this energy, like, what do you think it is? And like, I was actually talking to another guy, and he was like, how he explains energy and frequencies to scientists. It's like, well, where does power come from? What is
Mm-hmm.
electricity? And it's like, yeah, like that is the perfect way to put it. Like, there's literally energy all around us, but I think it's more of the connotation behind it. They're like, but it's really the same thing. It is literally energy all around us, and it's just how we choose to use it. So I love that point. And then also coming from very cultish like religious background that I come from, uh, it literally is like a poverty doomsday cult in a sense, if you will. And so I did have it, especially when it comes to recognizing that we are all inherently abundant and that it's okay to be that way. It was very hard in the beginning because I was raised like, you shouldn't want for certain things. You should be happy with what you have and don't
Mm-hmm.
try to do this, don't try to do that, especially like don't try to better yourself because anything that you do, you give it to the to the Lord, and it's not your doing, and all of these things that I had to unlearn, um that I realized was blocking me from my inherent abundance. And so there's this one, uh, it's like a channeler called Cryon that I listened to, and he had a little sermon called Stop Thinking Like a Human, right? And in that, he's like, as human beings, we feel as though we have to do certain things to get what we want when actually we were born already with the ability to grasp and obtain anything that we want. It is our birthright. And so once you accept the fact that you are, supposed to have all of this abundance, like you said, it's in the Bible, then that opens up the doors to so much. But yeah, it was definitely a long journey of having to unlearn the poverty mindset, especially in the environment that I grew up in. It was just all around me was poverty. So it was like maybe one, I should feel bad for wanting more, and two, is it even attainable? But yeah, doing the work and being introduced to all of those things, it really helped shift my perspective on that. And in that, as we talked about how we actually can affect the people around us, me changing my mindset has also changed my family's mindset, which is something that's so beautiful because that was a long struggle. And to see them embracing that, I'm like, all right, yeah, I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
Yeah, I mean, you just made me realize too, if you ever want to challenge both of those groups, you can go to the data geeks and sit down calmly and ask them to explain the placebo effect.
Mm.
They don't like when you ask them that. Ask them why there's mountains of data suggesting that anybody with a religious or a metaphysical type mindset like you and myself always come out of high risk surgeries and injuries much better than people that have zero belief. Just ask them that question and sit back. They don't have an explanation. And then we're going back to the Bible. If you remember, I mean, and when God comes to King Solomon and he says, I'm giving you this kingdom, I'll grant you one wish. And I think King Solomon was thinking about riches or power. And then finally he's like, I'd like wisdom.
Mm.
And God said, that's pleasing. That's the best thing to ask for. And now you get everything else, including more money than anybody could ever imagine. So if you ask somebody like, why would God give them all that money? Well, that's part of abundance, right? If you look at charity donations, right, like it or not, the rich donate a lot more because you can do a lot more with money. If I make $30,000 a year and I donate $100, I mean, that's great. All donations are great. But if somebody makes $10 million and they donate 500 grand, well, they just built part of a school. So money, like it or not, or riches, like it or not, or abundance, like it or not, it's there. It's mentioned in the Bible, and that's what is used to further society.
Mm. Yeah, that is perfectly said. Um, I was watching Mr. Beast on a podcast the other day, and he was talking about how, at this point, his net worth is about, over $1 billion. And he said, but I have less than 1 million in my bank account because what I love to do is take that money and invest it back into people and help people. Like, what's the point of having all of this money? And as you said, abundance leads to more abundance because what do most people do? As you said, when they have money, they donate. They're able to do all of these things that you can't do when you don't have money. So it's like
Right.
being humble is great, but you can help much more people if you're humble and have abundance. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about again, if whether you like the rich or not, or you have no opinion, when the rich guy goes and blows $2 million on a speedboat, right? Well, what happens with that? The company makes money, the workers get paid, they work, they contribute money into benefits, which benefits the medical workers. Some of that money is reinvested. The steel, the fiberglass, that was paid, right, to companies to build that. And then there's fees paid by the boat to go on the water, which is donated back to the town in which the boat sits. So there's a whole cascade of effects that happen when money is interchanged, or not even money too. It could be energies interchanged. If I decide today I'm going to go and donate my time to a food kitchen, and I never do this, there's an energetic exchange, right? Maybe the extra help I gave them, we were able to feed more people, or maybe, just maybe, the person I talked to who was not doing so well, I was able to give them 20 minutes of my time and just be an ear to listen to. So whether it's money or energy, there's an exchange happening when you come from a position of abundance.
Mm, yes, perfectly said. And on that note, if you can leave everyone with one thing, what would it be?
Work on your energy every day. Work on your energy and your mindset, and the rest will take care of itself.
Yeah, that's perfect. I think we're both living examples of that. And as you said, we're both, I guess, scientists in our own right as far as experimenting goes. So I'll take it a little further and say, uh, play games with the universe, play games with yourself, play games with your environment, make it fun, and I promise you, you won't regret it.
That's good
Thank you
advice.
so much. And so, where does the universe take you next?
Good question. I'm going to keep working on affirmations, manifestation, and hopefully be an embodiment, a living example of what is possible if you work on yourself and work on your mind.
I love that. And I'm 100% certain you'll get there. I already feel your energy, and it's a real, nurturing energy. Like, I really feel that from you. So I love that. And thank you so much, guys. This has been another transmission. Thank you for joining me, Don.
Thanks for having me. I had a blast. Bye.
That just fed my spirit and roasted my ego all in the same breath. Love it.
Dual nourishment successful.
Where to next, Arden?
Next, we exhale. Prepare to enter the sanctuary of the breath-bound, a sacred space where air becomes medicine, and boundaries are built not as walls, but as wisdom.